Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to Sarge Approved with your hosts Sarge and Frenzy.
Hello.
We are here with our guest Daniele Bolelli. Did I pronounce that right?
Excellent, I would say.
Awesome.
Yes, good job.
All right. Thank you, first off, for being with us.
Yes, thank you so much. We're very excited to chat with you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yes,
of course.
It's an honor to have you. Let's get this out of the way. This podcast is sponsored by National Survival Center. Mm-hmm. The guys over there have pretty much anything you're looking for when you're searching for survival gear or camping gear or just want to go do something outdoorsy. They've got tents and knives and night vision and gun cleaning kits and survival food. Pretty much free shipping on all their gear. It's all hand-tested stuff, and you're going to find it a lot cheaper than you're going to find at the big box stores like Cabela's or Gander Mountain or something like that. They don't put a big old profit margin on it. So check those guys out at nationalsurvivalcenter.com, or if your fingers are feeling lazy, you can type in survivedon'tsuffer.com. National Survival Center, survive, don't suffer.
Don't suffer, don't do it. You can fight off the Yetis and the zombies with the gear from National Survival Center.
You can find a pretty sweet sword that is pretty much unnecessary in any other situation besides fighting zombies.
Yep, basically, yep.
Okay, back to Daniele.
Let's play.
All right. So thank you for being with us again. And you're coming to us from California, is that correct?
Yep, I'm in Los Angeles right now.
Okay, but you're originally from Milan, Italy?
No, what are you talking about? Can you tell that my classic accent from Texas isn't coming loud and clear?
I don't hear any accent whatsoever. I don't know what you're talking about.
Actually, that's exactly what I think. I don't hear any accent when I speak, so I don't know what everybody's talking about.
Yeah, good for you.
We probably have the funny accent, especially being northern.
You know, I'm actually just terrible at picking up accents, period. So I don't, I definitely don't hear my own, but I hardly hear anybody's accent. I will get it here and there, but most of the time I don't.
Okay, good.
Well, we tend to get made fun of. We're from Minnesota, by the way, is where we're coming from, and so we get made fun of sometimes for our Minnesota accent, our long vowels.
Our vowels, yeah.
Long A's and O's.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, don't you know? We have long vowels. I don't even know where that comes from. I guess like the Norwegian, Swedish, I guess, maybe?
The Scandinavians.
Scandinavian side.
It's weird, man. It's like even in Italy, there's the accent changes from literally 50 miles to the next 50 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the dialect changes, I suppose, too, huh?
Yeah.
My mom is from Germany, and she moved here when she was 18 to the States, and I don't hear any accent from her whatsoever. But
Really?
Some people, I guess maybe some people can hear it. I don't hear anything at all. So that's kind of interesting to me. I just grew up with her.
I suppose.
And when she moved here, she didn't speak any English. She learned English after she lived here for a couple of years. So it's kind of funny. But if you go to different areas in Germany, I'm sure it's the same as Italy. They have the different dialects where a lot of German is the or they do the kind of like you're a cat hacking up a hairball. And then there's the other version. So it's just kind of funny to hear the different versions of it. So I would imagine it's the same with Italian.
Definitely.
The hairball.
That's what it is. And German is like the most hideous sounding language, I feel like. Like Italian's pretty sexy and like beautiful, and French is, of course, like super like eloquent and whatever, but German is just like, like they're always yelling and like seem angry all the time.
It's not the most attractive sounding language.
No.
I'm sure you get told all the time how sexy your accent sounds, though, Daniele. The Italian accent.
Among with everything else about me. So yes, I guess the accent is speaking.
Oh, I like your accent.
Where are you from?
That's exactly, that should be the title of my autobiography.
Yes, it should.
I like your accent. Where are you from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you, Mr. Bolelli, you are a man of many talents. You're a professor, an author, a podcaster, and you're highly trained in a variety of different martial arts. And you've written a ton of books.
Yep, all true.
And you're a daddy too, which is awesome too.
Yeah. In fact, for your listeners' benefit, we are trying to fit this conversation in between. No, wait, let's do in 10 minutes. I'm cooking dinner. No, wait, one more minute. So we had to do a few days to finally start recording because dinner duty and that kind of stuff was calling.
Yeah, don't get in the way. Don't get in the way of dinner. Like that is the most important part of the day with your kids, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it didn't help that I was having all kinds of fucking audio issues.
No biggie. We're making it happen now.
We've got it going now. It's good
It
to
happens.
go.
Yep.
So you've got a new book out that's called Not Afraid on fear, heartbreak, raising a baby girl, and cage fighting. And I plan on getting that book, as well as the one that I'm really interested in reading is 50 Things You're Not Supposed to Know, Religion.
Right.
And
yeah, all in all, I've done 4 books. Had a good time. I enjoy writing. I really, really like it. It's and publishers, if you do well with one book, they want you to write the same book over and over and over because it's kind of, it's typecasting in a way. It's like they know you for this, so keep delivering the same thing. That's kind of not what I do it for. I like to be able to tackle very different topics. So, so far my books have gone in different directions, and I think they're going to go in even more different directions in the future because I think I'm done with nonfiction. I just want to start writing stories instead and just straight up fiction novels.
Oh, really?
So I think that's where I'm heading next.
Very cool.
Interesting.
And you have a kind of a new series going on about Theodore Roosevelt. Is that right? Kind of a 2 to 3 part series happening?
On History on Fire podcast. I mean, the fun thing about History on Fire is that I teach history anyway in college, so I need to know some of that stuff regardless. And then I figure rather than telling it to 50 people in a classroom, I can figure out how to package the stories that I really care about, the epic, larger-than-life, either characters or moments in history, and tell them in Game of Thrones type of style. The feeling should be like watching a movie, except it's all real history.
So do you tell it like in a deep narrative voice when you do it?
Mainly
so it sounds just epic.
It's kind of like where I decide to put the focus on. What moments I decide to highlight, the stuff that you can relate to. Like, as if you're watching a character on the screen, what is that makes it successful or not successful? Is it if you relate or not? If you can put yourself in, imagine yourself being that person, feel their emotions, that makes the whole thing more real. Most history is usually taught in a very dry kind of way, in a way that nobody cares. It's like, yeah, it may be accurate, but so what? What does that have to do with me? That's kind of the opposite of what you want to achieve when you're talking about history in a good way. You want people to be in it.
Yeah. Have you heard about that Broadway show that's been happening about Hamilton?
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard about this?
Which is funny. I actually did an episode on that story.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did an episode on Hamilton and Aaron Burr shooting each other.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people that maybe didn't know the story and didn't really care about it, and now it's this whole Broadway big kind of show, kind of big deal, and it's opened a lot of eyes to different things that people maybe wouldn't have noticed before, which is cool. It's just a different platform to talk about things that have already happened,
And that is a crazy story when you think about it. Vice President of the United States going against the first, one of the most important politicians on the other side of the aisle, and they decide to settle their grievances just shooting each other. That's,
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
That's old school.
Why don't they do that these days?
I know, man. That's actually kind of how I closed the podcast.
Was it?
Like that 13-year-old in me just wishes we could go back to, if nothing else, a good cage fight. Just where
Right.
you have
I think you can really get shit done
Trump
that
against
way.
Bernie Sanders in a cage with taxes. That would be great.
And well, you can definitely get shit done that way.
Yep, totally.
So your martial arts stuff, when did you get started in it? When did you kind of... Go
I
ahead.
started dabbling when I was 17. For 4 years or so, I kind of played around with it. And then around the time when I was 21, I became a little more serious about it.
Yeah.
And then ever since then has been an important part of my life because I find it both for great, it's kind of like a great form of meditation for me. It's like it forces me to focus on one thing and one thing only, get those endorphins going. Training feels great. I just really like the feel of it. I notice that the times in my life when I don't train are the times that are the worst for my mental and physical well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those two things can definitely be very closely interconnected, physical and mental
totally.
side.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
So you started when you were about 17, and you've had extensive training in a gang of different martial arts styles. There's some here. I've written notes. This is the first time I've ever had notes for one of our guests.
Yeah, don't pretend you can pronounce all of the ways that he's trained.
That's what I was going to say. A lot of them I can't even pronounce. Kung Fu Sansu.
Mm-hmm.
Did I do that wrong right?
Yep.
Tai Chi Quan. Tai Chi Quan?
Sure.
Tai Chi Quan. Did I get it?
Yep.
Bagwas Hang.
Right? Yep.
Nice. This one, here's a tough one. Jingi Quan?
They pronounce that, sure. It's like Shingi.
Shingi
Quan.
Yeah.
Okay. And Shui Zhao?
Shui Zhao is basically a Chinese form of wrestling. It's really
Wrestling,
just
okay.
like, you have a lot of the same takedowns and throws and everything that you have in a lot of other types of wrestling. Pretty similar to judo.
Like judo, okay.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say. Submission wrestling, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, boxing, and judo.
And MMA too,
Yep.
right? A little bit of MMA stuff.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know at least 9 ways to fuck somebody up.
Well, I don't know about no, but I've trained in a bunch of things. Because, it's like I started out mainly with Chinese martial arts, and eventually I started moving more toward combat sports, where then I started more with the MMA, boxing, jiu-jitsu. Oddly enough, a little bit of wrestling was one of the greatest things I've ever done. I found that incredibly effective, stuff that you can pick up and apply very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So I was happy with the wrestling. I was happy. I kind of like it all, to be honest. I like pretty much every style, one way or another.
With the wrestling, do you wear like a super sweet outfit too to get to dress up?
No, sadly,
They don't
sadly,
do a Nacho Libre
sadly no.
situation.
Dang it. Okay, that's still cool. I think the outfits would be awesome.
That's only for the fake.
I have, with these guys from this group called Jiu-Jitsu Brotherhood, we teamed up together to create these rash guards. We bought the rights from the Frank Frazetta, the painter who did all these iconic Conan, the art for a lot of the Conan books. So we got this classic Frank Frazetta painting with Conan standing on a bunch of corpses with this semi-naked woman wrapped around him. And we turned that into a rash guard. That should be the official attire of anybody ever grappling.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Badass.
But it's not Conan like the Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan, right? With the big man boobs.
That one.
Oh, it is that one.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
the
only,
man boobs.
That's the only Conan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I guess I know now. I didn't know. Now I know.
So, like you were saying, with martial arts, that's like almost a form of meditation for you.
Sure. Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
In what way? How do you explain a little bit, if you don't mind?
Well, I mean, if you are most of modern life, we're always running around. Especially with internet, there's always this dialogue going on with somebody. You're reading something, you're talking to somebody, instant messaging, this, that, and the other. It's hard to sit down and do nothing because we are always bombarded with stimuli one way or another. So our minds are constantly hyperactive. And it's hard to just sit down and say, okay, I'm just going to go meditate, because you feel like we're so used to every other second something happening. I talk to somebody, this thought is crossing my mind, that is very difficult to slow down. So in some way, in martial arts, you have a good excuse to slow down. It's like, oh, I'm not doing nothing. I'm going to train. But the reality is that the very intense physical nature of training forces you to focus on one thing and one thing only. So your mind gets a break because you are so wrapped into the action that your mind doesn't get to wander so much. So you have this single-minded focus for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. In the meantime, your body's getting a great workout, endorphins are kicking in. Feels awesome. It's very mentally relaxing by the time you're done.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's like before technology and all the social media and cell phones started.
Yeah, I agree. We're constantly being overstimulated.
It's too much. Yeah, it really is.
And it can't be good for us.
And I mean, some of it is great, of course, but it's a new technology. It's only 20 years that we have it, and we don't know how to use it yet. We don't know what the boundaries are. We don't know how much is it healthy to actually do in a day, and how much is becoming diminishing returns when you're just filling up your days with this constant stream of stuff that's not really adding happiness to your day-to-day life. So I'm not saying, close your Facebook, but I'm saying just rather than having it open 24/7, how about you just check it 3 times a day? So I don't know exactly what the balance is. I'm trying to figure it out, but I know that I have to, because I notice that I spend too much time and energy where I feel like I've been so busy, and in reality I just got sucked down some tunnel in the internet and I never got out for 3 hours, and then so of course I have no time.
Yeah, it's moderation.
It's so hard though. I mean, I get it. I'm the same way a lot of the times. That phone is just attached to you, and if it's not by your side, you panic at times.
It's really a matter of sitting down and figuring out, okay, what is a good balance here? What kind of habits lead me to have all the advantages of the technology, where I have access to all this information without becoming a slave to it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's almost like budgeting your time as you would budget your bank account. I'm going to budget this much time for social media and spend this much time, on my phone versus actually interacting with other people physically or mentally, or just spending time with myself and like focusing on what I need to do. It's
definitely.
Yeah.
That is a tough balance, because, before all the social media, you definitely weren't as connected with the people that are already even in your life to begin with, relatives that you may not see all the time or talk to all the time. You can now talk to them whenever you please just by the push of a few buttons. But on the other hand, it's almost become like a drug at the same time.
It totally is. So great in some way, but if you pass a certain limit, it's not so great anymore, and it becomes an addiction.
It's almost, I don't know how you do that balance though. I mean, you're more connected than ever.
I don't know either.
But you're
trying to figure it out as I go.
Yeah.
It's like the more connected you become, the more disconnected we've become as well.
Mm-hmm. True.
But it's only gonna get crazier, the technology.
That's why we need to figure out how to take breaks. And again, I'm not saying you don't use it or you become this Luddite who's opposed to tech. No, I think there are awesome things in these technologies. Let's just create spaces. Some spaces for it, some spaces not for it. Let's check what you need to check. Don't look at it for the next 3 hours. The next 3 hours are technology free. Then go back and, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not saying deprive yourself.
No.
I'm just saying in a way that's fun, that's enjoyable, that adds to your life, and not to the point where it starts taking away from your lives.
Right, or it controls your life. It should be this kind of extra thing that's an extra kind of bonus, where I get to see what people are doing that I haven't, caught up with in a while or whatever. But Yeah, it's crazy how it gets to be, like you said, like you sit there for 3 hours and then you're like, what the fuck did I just do for 3 hours? Nothing. Like, what?
Exactly.
Ugh!
Yeah.
Got nothing done.
Get a job!
But your brain is exhausted because you've been looking
yeah.
at Facebook and Twitter all day.
Yeah, gross.
Yeah, so I agree. It's nice to be able to take breaks and have some kind of outlet. Like you have your writing and your podcasts and your teaching and your martial arts. So those are all outlets that you can. I guess podcasting, you're going to be online and working with social media there. But the martial arts especially. I agree that that makes sense. That's really a good outlet to kind of unplug yourself from all the other bullshit that the world brings. And just focus on something that you enjoy doing.
Absolutely. Feels awesome.
I wanted to ask you about Taoism. You've got that podcast, The Drunken Taoist. And explain a little bit what Taoism is. Because I've tried to read, the definitions of Taoism, but can't quite wrap my head around it.
Taoism started as a philosophy originally. In a book that was written down. The Tao Te Ching was written down. There are different theories whether it was about 2,600 years ago, 2,400 years ago, but give or take, somewhere in there. So roughly about 25 centuries ago. And eventually it also became a religion, and so there's a Taoist religion, even though the two are not always going hand in hand. There are people who are interested in philosophy and they don't give a crap about the religious aspect. People who are into the religious aspect who don't know much about the philosophical ideas. But the idea in general is this notion of, it's based on principles from nature. It's based on this really just kind of, the term itself, Tao means the way. Mm-hmm. So it's about kind of the way of the universe, the way that life works.
Humility.
And it's kind of like how certain principles apply to all things. It's kind of just the way the universe is designed. So learning those principles is incredibly helpful because you can then apply them to pretty much every other field of life. So like, for example, the whole yin-yang idea, the idea of duality. Mm-hmm. But the way they conceive of duality, not as a good versus evil kind of thing, is not a God versus the devil. It's more just opposite energies. We're not necessarily one good and one bad. It's like male and female, light and dark, cold and hot. This notion that everything in life is made on these two opposite extremes. Mm-hmm. And the interaction of these extremes, the balance between them is what what shapes life a lot. And finding the correct balance, which is constantly changing. That's the other thing about Taoism, is never that there are no fixed laws that you can apply to all situations, because what the right balance in one situation may have shifted in the next. Think of it like surfing. If you are surfing on a wave, it's not that you can say, I'm going to stand in the middle of the board and I'll just do this until I reach shore. Because the energy of the wave is going to change. And so you need to adapt to it. You're going to go, okay, now the right balance is I need to lean a little bit to the right. Okay, now the right balance is lean a little bit to the left. Now is this constantly adapting to these energies around you and learning how to flow with it.
Right. There's no specific right or wrong way. It's just
the right and wrong way is contextual.
Right.
In this moment, in this situation, this is the right solution. It does not necessarily mean that the same idea in a different context is going to work as well.
Right.
And so, how does Taoism evolve into a religion? Is there an actual god or deity that's involved in it?
Well, what happens in China is that Chinese religions were really all animistic. They were all shamanic in nature. So there was all this belief in a bunch of spirits that are out there. And you perform the rituals to make sure that the spirits don't screw with you when they are on your side. And that kind of stuff is the classic thing that you find in most of the world with shamanic beliefs.
Right, okay.
So typically what would happen is that then there would be some, Confucianism, same story. It started out as a philosophy and eventually evolved into religion. Basically, what ended up happening is that in China, people would maybe be Taoist because they like the philosophy, or Confucianist or something else, and they would just start adding a little bit of a Taoist flair to the shamanic religion they were already practicing, and then that became Taoism. So it's basically shamanism with a couple of Taoist ideas and some of the spirits maybe connected to Taoist stories or stuff like that.
Why does everything turn into a religion?
Well, I mean, in some way,
they have a church for pretty much anything under the sun nowadays. I mean, they have like Elvis churches and people who who follow, Elvis as their god, or I mean, anything under the sun. You can turn anything into a religion, and you'll find somebody that'll follow it.
I think a lot of Taoism tend to be is very much a do-it-yourself kind of thing, which is difficult for many people to handle. Whereas when you turn it into a religious practice, where it's about, okay, where's the altar where I can pray to such and such spirit or God so that they can fix my life, it's something that most people like because life is hard enough. And so they feel that there's a deflection of responsibility where not everything depends on you, where you can turn to some other unseen force out there that maybe will decide to help you out. It's mentally relieving. It appeals to human beings.
Yeah, I can see there's good aspects of all the different religions. There's positive aspects to them. I think that some people can be helped by the belief that they have, whatever it is. But overall, it's there's a lot of bad aspects too.
Sure, of course. But I think it's important to understand why people do it. And I think when you think about, start with something like death. Death does not, it's one of those annoying facts about the way our lives are designed, that it's really unnerving for most people to think that we have zero idea about what's going to happen to us after we die. It's not something that most people are comfortable with. Right. So the notion that somebody can give us the answers feels really good, because as much as scientific knowledge is great and all, but unless it can answer some of those things that human beings crave answers to, well, then humans are going to turn to non-scientific answers, because it's better to get those answers than no answer at all in terms of relieving your existential anxiety.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's more...
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. You go ahead.
I guess it doesn't matter how much we develop our science until religion is always going to be here to stay, whether we like it or not, because it addresses a human need that just remains unfulfilled through purely rational means.
Yeah. I think that it also has to do, and that's along the same lines, is that it's what you feel connected to. If you feel a connection towards a certain religion, or you think that this is what's going to happen to you after you die, or whatever it is, whatever you believe in, if you have that connection, and that might be a connection that you had because your parents told you that's what you should believe in, or you went to Catholic school and that's what you should believe in. Whatever your belief is, I genuinely think that you have a connection to it for some reason, and that holds a lot of weight for people.
Definitely. Absolutely.
I think most of the time it's the household you were brought up in. If your parents were Catholic, then you're going to go to a Catholic church your whole life and maybe not make a decision until you're an adult. That's
for sure. That's the general rule for most people, is that most people really just replicate whatever program was downloaded into their brains when they are young.
Yeah.
And they just run with it. Now, why is it that you go back 200 years and slavery is totally okay for the majority of people living in the United States or in many other parts of the world, and suddenly you fast forward a few decades and the overwhelming majority feel that slavery is evil?
Right.
It's because people don't question the norms of their times one way or another. They are just... Only after you reach a certain critical mass, then the majority of people will switch views. But most people just kind of, the culture they are taught is all they know, and they are going to replicate it without really thinking too hard about it.
Right. And if it weren't for, not everybody, I'm sure, would have the balls to say slavery isn't good. Like, let's use slavery as an example. Not everybody would say, like, this is a bad thing. Obviously, it took those certain groups of people or those however many people to bring it up and say, this is actually, we shouldn't be doing this. If those people weren't to bring that subject up and talk about it and have the guts to bring it up and actually realize it and talk about it, then who knows where we would be. There's reasons why people are able to have their own opinions and bring them up and talk about them. Because for the mass majority, I think a lot of people just would be fine, like just going along with it and not doing anything different.
Absolutely. Can I ask you guys just 1 second only that I need to catch my daughter super quick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm coming, baby.
We'll pause it.
Sorry, 1 second.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back.
Yay.
What were we talking about?
I think conditioning, really, that's what it boils down to. Most people don't question the norms that they are taught. And as a result of it, they just simply, although enough, they'll believe them. But, it's funny. It's kind of like if you are born in a certain country, in a certain century, you are going to have certain beliefs. Except for those very few rare individuals who are actually going to kind of transcend the norms of their cultures, because they are fully awake individuals who think about stuff, who really think like, is this what I really believe, or is this just stuff what I was taught? Is this really the best possible answers to deal with this issue, or is this only what I was taught? Most people don't do that. It's too hard, too much work.
They're not afraid to question things.
Well, and today, nowadays is a time that's never really happened before, where people, like we talked about, everyone being so connected. For real change to have happened in the past, a few individuals may have gone against the norm and slowly spread that kind of thinking, and but it took so long. And then now you have today where you can help spread that kind of thinking, the truly eyes open type view of things. But then again, you're also inundated with so much bullshit at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as easy to spread the same kind of conditioning that people are used to with how connected we are. So it's like, is it really improving, or is it really just kind of staying the same?
Right. The new technologies are creating opportunities, but of course, opportunities doesn't mean that they are going to be used well. Opportunities are just that, just more power. Mm-hmm. More power to do great things, more power to do crappy things. It's what it is.
We have more and more people nowadays who are able to have access to people like you and your books and your teachings and things like that. But there's a lot more people than there were hundreds or thousands of years ago. And so you may have more people that are opening their eyes to things and in new ways of thinking, but you still have way more people that are going along with the same old conditioning, because there's just so many people nowadays.
Yep, that's for sure.
It just, I don't know if anything will ever really be different, No matter what time you go back to, there's always something shitty about that day and age. There's always something that feels like it needs to evolve towards something better. But is there any time that you can think of that is a time when things were good, when like it felt like things were going right or moving in the right direction?
No, I don't think there's a golden age. I think it's always a mix of things. Some things being great, some things not being great. Now, I'm not saying that the mix is always the same. Mm-hmm. In some time and places, the good is a little bit and the bad is a lot. Some time and places are easier. But, the bottom line is always a gray picture, just different shades of it. Sometimes a lot easier than others. But again, it's never a black or white kind of deal.
Yeah, lots of shades of gray.
Yep.
Seriously.
Are you dropping a Shades of Grey reference?
No, I've always thought like when I've in my past life I worked in restaurants, and working in a restaurant you have to babysit people. Like your job is literally babysitting your employees, babysitting guests that come in, and I've always felt like when you communicate with those people, it's not black and white. There's so many shades of gray. Like I could tell one person, hey, go do this, and say it in a nice way, and then they would just be like, oh, go fuck off. Like, I don't care. And then the other person, I could be totally bossy and tell them what to do, and they'd be like, okay, and respond super well. It's just being able to read people and how they're going to react to what you're saying. And that's where I get the shades of gray thing, because it's not just black and white. There's like so many shades of gray as far as communicating with people, and not just in the restaurant industry. That was just my example, but in life in general, just being able to read people and how they communicate and what they respond to, and being able to kind of tell what that is.
What you just said, for example, that's Taoism right there.
Really?
That idea, yeah, I mean, it's exactly that concept. It's like you cannot apply the same solution to different people. You cannot apply the same style of communication to everybody, because, as you said, not everybody responds to the same things. Mm-hmm. So you need to, one of the key talents in Taoism that they emphasize over and over is being able to find the right balance for the right context. So in these cases, find the right tools to communicate with one person, which may be completely different from your style of communication that's needed for the next person.
Yeah.
And your skill is able to navigate those differences and recognize them and respond accordingly.
Oh, there we go.
Interesting.
I was doing it before I knew what it was. That's awesome.
Frenzy just opened up a box. And you can, and so that's very clear to me now. You can apply that to anything in life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What about, I've got, we had a guest on earlier. He's a comedian, Andrew Steiner. And he's a big fan of yours. He's got a meditation psychedelic podcast called Riddle of the Sphinx, and he was interested in knowing what you think Taoism's relationship to the martial arts is.
I think again because Taoism is really about just making things work well. What is the best way? So you can apply it to anything. The same way as you can apply to talking to your employees in a restaurant, you can apply the same principles to fighting. At the end of the day, it's about effectiveness. It's about what is that's going to make you the most effective communicator, the most effective fighter, the most effective whatever that may be, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So in that regard, the idea is that Taoist principles, how can you apply them to fighting, for example? Now, you don't need to learn the greatest martial art to figure out that some guy who's 300 pounds of muscle is going to crush somebody who's 150 pounds.
Unless you can wear them out.
You don't really need to keep anything to that 300-pound person to let them win. Nature will do it for them. The question then becomes is, how do you do it for somebody for whom nature is not already doing it for them? How can you become more effective to make up for the fact that you're never going to be that 300 pound of muscle? What can you do? Mm-hmm. And so that game becomes, a lot of Taoism, like they divide in, the yin-yang symbol. The yang is the light part, the considered masculine, aggressive, tough, assertive. The yin, the dark side of the circle, is the soft, more feminine, yielding. And Taoism tend to emphasize the yin, because they say yang, everybody gets it. Everybody understands strength, and everybody understands that obvious display of power. The yin is interesting because most people don't understand it, and also the difference is that it can get a lot done with very little effort, whereas the yang inevitably is built on effort, on strength, on putting forward is overwhelming the other side through more effort. And so their whole thing, for example, the yin approach in a fight would be to try to use, if you do jiu-jitsu with somebody, if somebody is better than you, you're going to go out of breath super quick. If somebody's worse than you, you look like a cardio machine and you can keep going for 3 hours. Mm-hmm. How is that possible? Your cardio is the same. It's not that it changes, But the way one person forces you to constantly tense up and use muscle and use energy, whereas the other one who does not have that degree of technique doesn't do the same, means that one person is going to exhaust you in no time, and the other one you could go on forever with.
Right.
That's kind of that idea of using yin, of being able to relax, need to use only as little muscle as needed. And, people then get into weird fantasies that means using no force. No, of course you're using force. You're just using as little as needed.
Yeah,
and figuring out how much is needed is the key part. It's like, how much can I get away with? How much you need to have it when you need it, but not 1 ounce more, because otherwise you burn out.
Yeah, right, and you're not going balls to the walls right away. Like, you're reserving yourself and knowing what you need to do.
Using every movement in an efficient way and with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that would be more the yin approach, is I don't need to just pick you up and throw you out of the cage through my super powerful strength. I can actually use your effort going forward and yield toward it to actually throw you with it. Like a lot of judo is based on that idea, on like using the other person's momentum to turn it against them. It's an art. It's not easy. But when you do it, it looks like magic. When somebody really knows what they are doing, it's like, damn, that was beautiful. That was perfect. It's like perfect timing, perfect execution, and very little strength.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So how long did it take you to kind of realize that and perfect that? Or was it something that came to you right away, or was it just something that you learned over time?
No, I think it's an ongoing process. Very quickly you get an idea of what that means, as other people do that to you without seemingly using any energy. And then eventually you start getting slightly better, and you can probably get better at it throughout your whole life.
Yeah. Well, look, it made Steven Seagal a movie star.
Oh, jeez. Steven Seagal. Under siege.
The guy's 300 pounds now, and he still throw people around.
He's light as a feather.
That the whole yin yang then, so that to me that really sounds like the male and female dynamic when you break it down. And the
idea being so that it's inside of everybody. Like, men have both of those energies, women have both of those energies. By nature, you're going to have more one than the other, but both sides exist every individual to one degree or another. The way we sometimes operate, according to in many societies, gender roles, in women, they'll tend to squash the yang side. In men, they'll tend to squash the yin side. And it's kind of silly, because these are just, who said that if you're strong, you can be sensitive, or vice versa? Who the hell says that they need to be different things? It's like, you are a more complete human being if you have both. If you are good at both, if you develop both.
Culture and society seem to want that to be the way it is, though. I don't know what started that at all, and it seems it feels like it's written in our DNA. Men are supposed to be the big, strong protectors, and women are supposed to be the loving caregivers. And society just seems to kind of take and run with that.
Yeah, it's funny. If anything, one should do a little bit. Kind of, if you're naturally the strong, tough person, then you should learn how to be more mellow and sensitive and all of that. And if you are by nature more sensitive and mellow, you should probably learn about toughness and assertiveness. It really is about developing a healthy balance. This idea that it's kind of like, think of it as somebody who's lifting weight. If somebody's just going to lift on their chest alone and they just develop this massive upper body and they have no legs, that's a little weird. If they're only lifting with their legs and they never develop their upper body, that's a little weird. It's kind of what we do to our personalities that way. It's like, you have these, okay, go 10 times more in this direction and completely overlook the other side of it. It's like, that's not healthy. That's not a good idea.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I like that analogy a lot.
It makes total sense. It's just it's a difficult struggle. It's the way our culture is kind of set up. It's hard to feel comfortable if you're a big, strong alpha kind of guy. It's hard for you to want to be able to show a sensitive side. Everyone will call you a pussy.
Yeah, but then also coming from the side of Yeah, but then coming from the side of as a woman, like I feel like I'm an alpha woman. Like I'm definitely very sensitive, but I'm also tough too. But I also think that when I do am emotional, it's like, oh, it's just because you're a girl or you have your period or like whatever. And it's like, yeah, guess what? I get to fucking be emotional because I'm a fucking woman. Like I can be, but also at the same time, I can be tough too. Like it's the same stereotype as a man, like shouldn't be emotional. It's like I'm emotional because I'm a woman. Like that's the only reason why. Like it's just kind of funny to me how there's those stereotypes set up for male and females.
And those are really just human qualities that everybody should develop. Everybody should have emotional intelligence. Everybody should have strength. Everybody should have toughness. Everybody should have a nurturing, sweet nature.
Yeah.
These are all good things. These are things that you want as many of them as possible, as much of them as possible.
Right, and being well balanced in all of them, right? Like having that balance of all the things.
Absolutely. You do. Speaking of yin yang, this past weekend, my girlfriend did her professional MMA debut, so she had her first fight.
Oh, exciting.
And it was so weird because I was watching, I've watched the YouTube video now a million times already and just seeing it because it's so bizarre. She gets in and she is just fierce, right? The whole fight lasts 18 seconds and then her opponent is out cold for a good minute after the fact. It was insane because you normally don't see that kind of KO power in most women, even good fighters.
Badass.
He just hit her with this left hook from hell that just separated her from Conor. It was just like Mike Tyson fight. It was nuts, right? Just this crazy raw power. And I was like, Jesus.
Yeah.
And then, I know her the way I know her, and she's like the most mellow, sweet. She never gets angry about anything. She's super mellow. She's, I would say, downright shy in the way she relates to a lot of people. And so, she seemed like the stereotype of the super feminine, sweet, mellow person. And then there's this other side of her, which is fucking Mike Tyson. It's just like, okay, that's interesting. That to me is fascinating because it's like, those are both sides, both fairly well developed, you know what I mean? Where it's not a all or nothing kind of deal.
Yeah.
You have the strong side in a very strong way. You have the mellow side in a very mellow way. And both of them are there.
And it makes you appreciate her more as a person, doesn't it? That she has both of those sides.
That is more interesting. You're a more interesting human being than if all I can ever talk to you is this one thing, it gets boring really quick.
And and it's also, I bet you it's nice to know that if you and the girlfriend are ever walking down a dark alley and a mugger comes up, you can be like, you got this one, babe. I'll take the next one.
Or you could tag team it and you both, that you're going to end up being fine.
That's crazy because it's like in the locker room beforehand, you see all the people who just had their fight before you coming back or bloodied up or something. There's a lot of pressure.
Oh, I'm sure.
Suddenly, like, okay, you're next, ready to go, and you're like, oh shit, she did not care. Completely focused, just on task. I was 10 times more nervous than she was. Not only because it was her fighting, but even when I did it, I was 10 times more nervous than she was. She's just better at it. She just has way better ability to handle pressure than I ever did. And it was pretty mind-blowing to look at it. Just going like, Jesus Christ, this woman is solid.
That's awesome.
And even after the fact was hilarious because she... the whole thing was so intense that afterwards I spent the whole night dreaming about the fight. So I asked her, hey, were you thinking about it all night long? Or she's like, no, I was dreaming about donuts because, I had to cut weight to make the fight. And it sucks. I'm hungry now.
What was that? What was that like? That had to have been crazy to see your girlfriend, the woman you love, up on stage or on the
in the cage,
just
put somebody to sleep. In her first match in 18
pretty
seconds.
Nuts. And I mean, that thing, like 3 seconds in, she landed this one punch that it sounded like a gunshot across the stadium. Everybody went, whoa! Again, you normally don't see that in female MMA.
Yeah.
And then they clinched, they threw down a little more, and then she broke the clinch, and maybe 15 seconds later, hit her with this left hook that put her out. And I was like, holy shit, that was intense. That was Wow. Okay, that's a whole other level of power there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I can see why you dreamt about it and thought about it all night long. And I can also see why she dreamt about donuts, because I'm sure cutting weight, you're just like, give me all the food that I'm not supposed to eat.
Yep, that's exactly it.
That's awesome.
I had another thing I wanted to ask you. This is Andrew Steiner wanted to know. You've had training in Kung Fu, and what is the Kung Fu style?
Well, I mean, Kung Fu honestly is kind of this, it's just a generic term to refer to all kind of Chinese martial arts.
Okay.
So there is no one kind of Kung Fu. It's just, because really the meaning of Kung Fu is about any skill that can be developed by putting time and energy in it, which really means everything, right? So they applied it in this case to the martial art, but even the concept of Kung Fu is not necessarily only about martial arts. It's about really just, there are no shortcuts. You need to put the time and energy to get good at anything. Okay. But the way the term is usually used is to refer to Chinese martial arts. But again, there are hundreds of different styles of Chinese martial arts. So the term Kung Fu itself just tells you Chinese. That's about all it tells you. Okay. There's not much more beside it.
It's not specifically, throws or striking or anything like that.
No, there are a gazillion different styles. I mean, even like Shui Jiao that we mentioned earlier was kind of Chinese wrestling. That would be considered a kind of Kung Fu. It's completely different from others. Shui Jiao is basically, most of it is trained as a combat sport. And you look at it and it really doesn't look that different from a lot of different wrestling styles. Very similar to Judo. Little more joint locks, but, similar enough. And it's completely different from the next style of Kung Fu really Kung Fu is a very vague term.
Okay. So Andrew was wondering, how and when Kung Fu will start being integrated into the MMA.
I mean, I think Chinese martial arts have a bad rap for good reasons, because a lot of the training methods in modern Chinese martial arts have been fairly awful, which led to people who would practice a lot and really not get that good at fighting. That doesn't mean that there are some good ideas in it. I think there are some excellent ideas in some styles of Kung Fu. I think the way they have been trained have been terrible. And so it's really just about, you almost have to go into that river in the mud and just dig for that little bit of gold that you'll find. And there are some great things in there. But there's also a lot of mud in it. The way, the training methodologies of most Chinese martial arts are horribly antiquated. A lot of the mentality, the teaching styles, all of that has been pretty bad. Having said that, I do find some useful things in it. In fact, that's why once in a while, I'll tell my girlfriend, hey, try this one thing out. And then she'll try it in boxing. I'll be like, yeah, that worked out great. I'm like, cool, awesome. But, it's like little things here and there. You can, maybe not even little, but things here and there, you can make them work. But you have to put them in a different framework compared to how most Chinese martial arts teach these days.
Yeah, tweak it a little bit.
Yeah,
have you
a lot, probably.
A lot, yeah. Have you ever traveled to China or Asia or anywhere?
No.
Is that something?
No, never been.
Do you have any desire to do that, or not so much?
I like to. There are a couple of places that I would love to go. I love to see Japan. I would love to see Thailand. Those would be
Thailand
some of the
would be
big
awesome.
ones.
Yeah.
My girlfriend originally, her family is Cambodian, so she's kind of Southeast Asian. So that trip would be fun, kind of Cambodia, Thailand type of stuff. Japan fascinates me in a lot of ways. Those would be the primary spots I would like to check out.
Yeah. And have you been to Italy? When was the last time that you went back to Italy?
Just this past summer.
Oh, you did? Okay.
So you get to go back there. You still have family in Italy?
Yeah. My dad lives there, so it's fun.
Okay.
Good. Your dad, I understand, is a pretty well-known philosopher, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be where you get a lot of your thinking and your upbringing from, is probably from your father and the way he raised you, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, both my mom and dad wrote for a living in one way or another. Maybe not the only thing they did, but my mom being a journalist, my dad writing books and this and that. So there was always that kind of a vibe around the heart. Like, to me, like something like podcasting, those kind of conversations are sort of the way I was raised anyway. Mm-hmm. So, like, kind of an extension of the way I grew up, having these conversations with people from all walks of life who come through the house, chat. It's kind of a very creative environment that certainly helped me a bunch. That just gave me a huge head start in that regard.
Yeah. Or just being able to communicate with people, I think, is a big deal. I mean, some people aren't comfortable with talking to people at all, So that's pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. It does.
So, yeah.
Do you have any more questions for Daniele?
No, that's what Angie wanted to know. I mean, I have a million questions. Before this podcast, when I was driving, I basically had an entire conversation with you in my head.
That's funny.
Trying to think of what do I want to ask this man who is obviously much more intelligent and much more well read than I am, but I'm fascinated by you, and
It's so hype. I just sell myself well. That's all.
You're just damn good at marketing.
It's yourself. Your damn accent. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the reality is that nobody ever understands anything I say, but I sound very animated and I seem very secure in what I'm saying. People say, well, I guess you must have something good going on.
Yeah,
but the reality is nobody knows what I'm saying.
I was listening to your podcast earlier and I was like, I just want to listen to him talk so that I can understand what he's saying. And the whole time, I understood every word, so that helped me.
Yeah,
it works that way. Often people, sometimes they hear my accent and they go, oh, Jesus, what the hell is he saying? Typically, if you give it 10 minutes, then you start not hearing the accent as much anymore, or at least, I mean, you'll still hear it, but you'll suddenly become totally understandable.
Yeah, like I don't hear it right now at all, really, at all.
It's not as bad as you make it out to be. It's not as unintelligible as you think it is.
No, and you should be proud of it, because it's awesome.
Well, and I think I got lucky with that, because as you guys were saying, some accents you don't get such a good rep for. Others you can get away with.
Like the southern accent?
In that regard, I just got lucky. It's some people get it rough, because their accent may not sound pleasing to the ear of the average American, and so if you do have an accent from those places, you're kind of screwed, because everybody's like, just learn how to speak right already.
Yeah, right.
Not having a perfect American accent, because people are more forgiving in the case of an Italian accent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was a good choice to keep the accent.
Yeah, I agree.
I wish I could claim it was a choice. My inability to hear anything does it.
Well, how long have you been living in the States?
Oh man, you don't want to know. It's so long. It's like by now I'm actually exactly in, I came here when I was 18.
Okay.
I'm 42 now. So that's been it's almost 25 years now.
Wow. Those accents never go away. I mean, right? I've met your mom, and I hear her German accent.
Yeah, I don't hear it, but do you have you taught your daughter Italian by chance?
I mean, she understands stuff here and there.
Yeah.
It's hard because you also want to get stuff done. So she doesn't want to practice it, of course. So it's like sometimes when you start talking in Italian and then she's missing the vocabulary and then you start having to translate, and it's difficult. I mean, she kind of gets what I'm saying, but she doesn't really speak much.
Yeah.
She really understand mostly, but not really speak.
Okay.
Well, they say when you're young is the best time to learn alternate languages.
Yeah, I mean, I tried a bit. Wasn't really picking up quite as easily as I did make it sound.
You also had a lot going on at that time, so it's okay.
True. There's that too.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah. I mean, my mom never taught me German when I was growing up. My Oma, who has passed away, my grandma in Germany, and my Opa used to always be like, why didn't you teach her German? Why didn't you teach the girls German? And my mom was like, I didn't want to confuse them. And so I took 4 years of it. I took 4 years of it in high school, so I know quite a bit, but not the same as if I would have grown up with it. But I don't know what I really would have done with it, you know?
Yeah, English is our English is a hard enough language to learn, and I'm 33 years old, and I still don't have a full grasp of it.
No, you really don't. You need some help. There's a community college down the road. You might want to sign up for some English courses. But that's cool for her that she gets to have, you know, what's the name for, is Grandpa a different name in Italian? Or what does she call your dad?
Yeah, usually Grandpa is nonno.
Nonno, that's cute. I like it.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
That's cute.
Mm-hmm.
This might be a good time to wrap things up.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much. I think I'm just in time to head out to put my daughter to bed.
Yeah, do that.
Perfect.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for spending some time away from your little nugget, beautiful girl, to be with us. We appreciate it.
Of course. My pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. Okay, that was our guest, Mr. Daniele Bolelli. Very, very interesting dude. He's got a lot going on.
Super awesome.
Yeah. Very honored to have him on the show, and looking forward to having him on again sometime.
Yes.
This episode has been brought to you by National Survival Center. They got all the gear you need if you're looking to stock up on your survival gear. If you're a prepper and you're stocking up for that apocalypse that's inevitable, it seems.
Uh-huh.
The zombies are going to show up one day, and you're going to need some stuff to fight them off and hole up and survive for a while. So, or if you just want to go camping, you want to take the family on a nice camping trip, and you want some quality gear that is definitely a lot less expensive than going to the store and buying it. You can find them online at nationalsurvivalcenter.com or survivedon'tsuffer.com. They got free shipping on pretty much all their gear, so go check them out. They got a lot of good stuff over there. National Survival Center, survive, don't suffer.
Don't even suffer.
We're going to play this episode out with a little song by the band Monkey Mind and their song Hypocrisy. Thanks for being with us.
Bye.
Later, fuckers.